Hello reptile friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is India, aka Anacondiac, and today we'll be discussing whether or not I'm a bad person. Today we'll be discussing how I sleep at night. Today we'll be discussing the pros and cons of tubs versus tanks and why I personally prefer tubs. So if you are brand new to the reptile keeping world, then you might not know that the whole tubs versus tanks debate is probably one of the top controversies in the whole reptile keeping universe. It is a really big debate and people do get quite aggressive about defending their views online, so I just thought I would give my 2 cents about what I feel about the topic and about why I personally do like tubs and use them with my snakes. But I didn't just want to make a video of me singing the praises of tubs. I wanted to do like a balanced argument of the pros and cons of all the different types of enclosures that you can use for your reptiles, and then why I personally choose tubs over all of those. So why do people not like tubs? And I think for the most part it's to do with the context that they are quite often used, which is as part of big rack systems. And when people think of rack systems used by breeders and the like, they think of quite empty tubs, maybe only have a little bit of substrate and a water bowl in. It's nothing to do with the tubs themselves, it's how they are used. So sometimes if I say that I use tubs for my snakes, people think that they are just quite barren and empty again, and they're really not. But yeah, I choose tubs that are a large enough size that I can pack them with enrichment for my snakes. So I always pack my tubs with hides, things for them to climb on if they like that, enough substrate for them to burrow in, and a really good sized water bowl. And if you are careful about which tub you buy and which size you buy, you can fit all of this in really easily. But I do think that the use of tubs is generally perceived as going hand in hand with animal hoarding and having loads and loads of animals. And while I agree that people like breeders and reptile collectors who do have a lot of animals use tubs, whereas a lot of kind of ordinary reptile keepers like me, for example, I use tubs for their other beneficial reasons rather than just because it means I can have a lot of pets in a small amount of space. Tubs, when used properly, can be fantastic for the welfare of snakes. So with that being said, what are the good aspects of tubs? Like I mentioned before, people with a lot of reptiles do tend to lean towards tubs because they are very space efficient. It's a lot more space effective to have 5 tubs in a rack system rather than having 5 large vivariums in a room. They're also really easy to find as well. I have bought them off Amazon before, in my local hardware shop. You can really find tubs anywhere. And they are very cheap as well, especially when you compare them to the prices of glass and wooden vivariums. The price difference is pretty massive, and that can make a difference to people. Another point is that they are really easy to modify. All you have to do is drill some holes in and make sure the lid's secure, and then you're ready to go. Whereas other kind of tanks can be more difficult to modify to your own needs. Because tubs hold both heat and humidity really well, they make a perfect option for species like ball pythons and baby rainbow boas who need a higher all-round humidity than other species. And you can control the humidity really easily as well by just drilling some more holes into the side of the tub to lower the humidity, or by covering the holes back up to increase the humidity. So yeah, I love tubs. I personally use them for all my snakes. For me and my personal situation, tubs just work best for me and my pets. But I also know that if my situation were ever to change, I'm not such a massive tub lover that I wouldn't accept that and go over to glass or wooden vivariums or something else like that. I think the important thing of being a reptile owner is to be very adaptable and being willing to change your husbandry practices if that's what's best for your reptile. But yeah, for my reptiles right now, tubs are perfect for them. My house is always quite dry. I find that if I use glass vivariums, the humidity just stays way too low and I have to keep misting throughout the day. So if I'm at work during the day, I can't do that. So now I am done singing the praises of tubs and I have told you my personal reasons for using them. Let's compare them to glass vivariums. For reptile keepers that only have a few pets, glass vivariums are amazing. They allow you to get a really good view of your animals and lets you put them on display for everybody to see. Most tubs are a kind of opaque plastic that don't really allow you to see your pet in them, so that is definitely one big downside of tubs. I can't really see my snakes unless I pull the tubs out and take off the lids and have a look, whereas glass vivariums is the complete opposite of that. So yeah, for the visibility reasons they make amazing choices, but unfortunately they are very, very heavy. There is no way I would ever be able to lift my bearded dragon Sparks' tank by myself. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. It takes at least 3 people to lift it. So that's going to be fun when I move out. They are also really expensive as well. And while there are lots of different designs, there are definitely not as many kind of sizes and shapes as tubs. If you buy a new glass vivarium or a new glass tank, be prepared to fork out a couple of £100 for one because they are really expensive. But going more into the details about the glass tank, it can definitely be a lot harder to maintain humidity levels in a glass tank because they will often have a mesh lid that lets the humidity out. So if you keep a humidity loving animal in a glass tank, be prepared to either mist a good couple of times a day, or be prepared to try and modify your tank by covering up part of the mesh lid to try and keep some of that humidity in. But in my opinion, all of that is a lot more work than simply using an enclosure made of plastic that traps the humidity in better, but that is just my opinion. You just have to do what is best for you and what's best for your animal, and as long as your reptile is getting the right light and the right humidity for their situation, it shouldn't really matter what enclosure they are in, really. If you do keep a humidity loving animal in a glass tank, you do have to just be super careful, because if they are exposed to too low humidity levels for an extended period of time, that can cause respiratory infections and other nasties. And just like glass vivariums can have too low humidity, tubs can actually have too high humidity, which can be bad for animals as well and also cause respiratory infections. So depending on which species you keep, you might be actually better going for the glass tank rather than the tub. If you're keeping a species like a king snake that prefer hotter and drier conditions, a glass tank would probably be a lot better off for them, rather than a tub which could potentially raise the humidity levels too high. Whereas pythons like ball pythons and green tree pythons would definitely benefit from an increase in their humidity levels, which a tub would provide. But don't worry, because you can basically keep any species in any kind of enclosure as long as you are prepared to put in the effort and modify the enclosure for your animal's needs. If you want to make it work, then you definitely can in most cases. You just have to be determined and probably have a few power tools. So that was tubs versus glass tanks. How about tubs versus wooden vivariums? So I think wooden vivariums are great. They come in every shape and size under the sun, and you can get wooden vivariums that are custom made to your exact dimensions, so you can have a custom enclosure that is the perfect size for your species if you can't find one that is readily available on the market. If you keep boa constrictors, Burmese pythons or reticulated pythons, snakes like that are definitely hard to shop for when it comes to trying to find the right size enclosure. Wooden vivariums can often be easily stackable as well, so you can create an amazing feature with a couple of vivariums stacked on top, which for people with a number of reptiles is a really nice option. Most wooden vivariums have wood on all of the sides bar the front pane of glass, which will either be a sliding door or like a traditional hinge door usually. So they still provide a really good view of your pet snake or lizard. Having the other sides covered can be really beneficial to your reptile as well, as it can make them feel a lot more secure and lower their stress levels. That's actually another advantage to having your reptiles in a tub. Because all of the sides aren't see-through, they do tend to feel a lot more secure. And if you do have a reptile that is suffering from stress, maybe a snake that's gone off its food because it is feeling stressed, changing its enclosure to something that helps make it more secure, like a wooden vivarium or a tub, might just be the thing to make your snake or your reptile relax enough again. However, the downside for wooden vivariums is that they can be quite costly as well, often not quite as much as a glass tank or a glass vivarium, but still a lot more than a tub. They can also be quite susceptible to water and humidity damage if they're exposed to either too high humidity or excess water for a long amount of time, so just bear that in mind. And now let's go to the complete opposite of plastic tubs, which are mesh vivariums. These are literally the polar opposites to the plastic tubs that I use. Mesh vivariums are usually very, very open. They will have mesh on all sides, which is amazing for species that love lots of light and air movement like chameleons. However, keeping a species that loves humidity in a mesh vivarium would definitely cause respiratory issues after a certain amount of time. Some species like chameleons would definitely love a mesh vivarium. It does just go to show though that one size definitely does not fit all when it comes to enclosures. Just because one animal thrives in a certain type of enclosure does not mean that another species is going to thrive in the same kind of enclosure. All the different species have their own requirements, so do what is best for you and what is best for your animals. Don't listen to all the hate on the internet, just educate yourself and do what is best for your animals. If that means putting them in tubs, then put them in tubs. If that means keeping them in glass vivariums because you like to display your pets, that's fine too. As long as your animals are getting the adequate care that they need, then that's all that matters. There is absolutely no need for hate in this hobby, but people really do get quite aggressive. I just hope that I've managed to educate at least one person today and that I've been able to explain my side and my views on this very touchy subject as eloquently as possible. So I hope I've been able to do that for you guys. So yes, thank you for watching this week's video. If you liked it, please give me a big thumbs up, it helps me out loads. And if you haven't already, remember to subscribe and press the little bell notification button and you will never miss one of my uploads. If you like my content and you haven't had enough of me, please check me out on social media. I'm on Tumblr, Instagram and Twitter at Anachondriac. But yeah, that's all from me this week. Remember to have a lovely rest of your day and I will see you next week for another video. Bye guys!